Also come in here and take off anything on the rosette that goes past that line. You really only want a finger's width in between the rosette and the jacket so that when they move, the rosette just kisses the jacket when they're in motion. Just about a little finger right there. We'll neaten everything up as we go. This is just to kind of set the guideline and the idea. In order to set the underneath, we're going to find the bottom of the loin here. So underneath this muscle at the very bottom of that muscle is how far up we're going to go. So we'll mark that as well. Notice when I'm marking the outline of something, I'm going in at a 90-degree angle to really mark a sharp outline for that. Now, because this rosette is so long, before I set the back of this rosette, I'm going to scissor the front of it just a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm not creating a rosette that's too small or too large. If I take length off of the back without trimming the bulk off of the front of this, then I may end up with a rosette that is way too small. I'm just going to scissor. It's really only because she's just so grown out, which I did on purpose. Now I can see where the front of my rosette is going to be. This rosette should be right about here. You base it off of where the tail sits and where the hip bone is. Make sure that the hip bone is inside of that rosette.
I'm pausing this here to explain that if you are doing this trim for competition, the placement of your rosette and that hip bone is going to be based on your judge. If your judge is familiar with showing poodles, they are going to understand it is based off of the dog's conformation. If your judge is familiar with breed standards but not necessarily showing poodles, they may want that hip bone directly in the center of this rosette. It's all about knowing who your judge is, and if your rosette does not sit directly centered over that hip bone, it is something you should tell your judge at pre-check-in.
To do the center, we need to make sure, as usual, the dog is standing square. If the dog is not standing square when you are doing these rosettes, none of this is going to come out in the correct placement. We're going to follow the spine, making sure she's standing straight. Again, if you need to set this up with straight scissors to really give yourself a guideline, that is great. Going along the spine here, I'm coming in at that 90-degree angle to really set the outline as my guide. I kind of go this way and then this way and this way and this way. I start off small, right in the center of the spine. While I'm up here, I'm going to begin to create this line to connect over here. That'll help me when I get to the other side to have a guide for connecting and making sure that I'm setting the length symmetrically. As we get this line situated, and neaten up the edges, and we'll scissor it. Even after I do my scissor work, I'll come back in here and neaten this up, the outline with the, I'll do the edges all over again. This can be about 2 fingers of width here. Start on the smaller side because you will always end up with larger, especially as you're evening up either side with scissor work and sharpening up the outlines. It's safer that way. Now, once I set up the outline of the rosette, I'm not going to scissor the rosette until I do the jacket because the length of the jacket is what's going to set the length of the rosette, which then sets the length of my bracelets. Scissoring this rosette, we've already set the outline. I'm just taking off what comes past that outline, scissoring it round. Once we do that, I personally like taking chunkers to the length of my rosette. I think it looks really nice that way. We're going to comb it up. We are going to use the length of this jacket to set the length of this rosette. That is what gives you a balanced rosette with the length of the jacket and the body. I just scissor everything round and base it off of the outline that I set myself. Now, once I set the length in for the top, I can connect it to the outline that I set for myself. All about having a starting point and an ending point, setting up your outline for a